This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
I saw a great item on the internet, and I don't know why it is these things always suck me in, but they will every last time suck me in. And I know Amin will appreciate this as someone who cares about the movies. Somebody just started a thread of best movie weapons of all time. And once
Rocky's fist.
Once I saw you're terrible at this game, have been since 1978 because your every reference is Rocky related, and it's not the way to play this game. You haven't updated your movie references since 1978, and you're proud of yourself for doing it that way, and it stinks. It stinks like Trey Lance stinks.
And also, numerically, we proved that Drago's fist. More deadly.
Yeah,
steroids.
Yeah, okay, there it is. So, when I saw, and this always happens with these kinds of games, when I saw what I thought was the best nominee, I'm like, well, no one's going to be able to do better than Anton Chigurh's weapon in No Country for Old Men, where he's using a silencer that is meant to, I guess, debrain cows or something, and it's just an amazing movie weapon from one of the most amazing movie villains there's ever been.
How about Rambo's machete?
How about Will Smith and Men in Black being able to get your memory all gone with one push of a button?
Not a weapon.
The neuralizer?
That's a weapon. I mean, it's not
a weapon.
It's a device.
Didn't in one of the comic book movies, spoiler alert, someone just snap and half the people died?
Avengers?
Is that a weapon?
Thanos killed half of all existence with a finger snap. But I kind of feel like the glove was really the weapon. The Infinity Stones was the weapon. And then he used
What is the best movie weapon of all time? So if I ask you guys, is there a consensus on this? My wife selected the bowling pin in that Daniel Day-Lewis used to kill on the bowling alley the pastor. What is his name? What is that? It's not Thanos. It's Nanos or something. What is the name? What is the name?
Nanos.
Yes,
What is the name of the preacher man that Daniel Day-Lewis killed with a bowling pin? It's a good nominee for my dark princess wife.
Thanos Jenkins.
How about the bald guy's finger?
Again, from the movies, Stugotz. From
Real life.
Anything from the movies, Stugotz, that's not Rocky. Help yourself to anything.
I gave you Rambo.
In the movie genre, anything at all that isn't Sylvester Stallone. It would help
the
me.
matchstick.
It would.
Cabretti. Marion Cabretti.
I mean, I wanted to ask you about whether or not you have in your history as a front office executive any experience with doing anything like what it is that happened with Mike Evans and the Bucks and incentives and money.
Yeah, we do have a story. When I was in Phoenix, Grant Hill had an incentive, but it wasn't a team incentive. It was a sneaker incentive. So a lot of people don't know this. The sneaker companies will often have incentives in the deals. And for Grant Hill, I think it was to average like 15 points a game or whatever it was. And he needed 25 in the last game of the season. And Grant at this point, he's an elder statesman. He's a role player. He's averaging probably not like just shy of 15, but it usually comes on, just getting shots here and there. But we knew we got to get Grant his money. So we force-fed him the ball. He shot more times in that last game than he had shot in the entire season. He shot more free throws than he shot, I think, in his entire tenure as a Phoenix Sun. And when he hit the number, the bench went crazy, and the announcers didn't know why. The Suns bench is really, up in arms over Grant Hill making that layup or making that free throw or whatever.
Up in arms is a negative.
Or whatever.
Yeah, up in arms is not used correctly there. Why are people up in arms? Can you tell me, like, what up? Is it
Arms.
just...
Like,
So they are raising guns over their heads up in arms. That's I don't know what
That would be up in guns.
Yeah.
It
Good
originated
point.
in the late 1500s as
Thank you.
reference to an armed rebellion. So
there you
yes.
go.
Okay, but is it physically running into a place with bayonets over your head because you're
Making that noise.
Yes, you're attacking in riot form. With a bayonet over your head, somebody who can shoot you because you're using your gun to stab them.
Billy's here.
There's always follow-ups, Jeremy.
I do have follow-ups just because, forgive me for loving the origins of things. Up in arms was used incorrectly there.
It was.
No, it was
used incorrectly.
It was simply used incorrectly. It's not something that can be disputed. I wanted to talk to the group about something that that feels incorrect to me, and I wonder if anyone cares. Rex Ryan being recycled in an interview by the Jets is amazing for a number of reasons, not the least of which is they don't need to interview him. They know how terrible he is.
Wait a second. We went to back-to-back AFC championship games.
But they know what he is.
Let's get a damn snack.
All right, they know how great he is. Fine, whatever. The interview's unnecessary. Least offensive of these two interviews. John Gruden, his name being mentioned near anything should cause shame eternally for everyone involved with that league. The idea that that can be recycled into something after what that has done publicly just because he smirks and is charming and we're in a different America than we were when he was the highest paid face and voice at ESPN on behalf of football enthusiasm. I understand that Barstool resuscitated him. I don't blame second chances. I think everybody should actually get second chances. But that guy with those crimes going right to the top of the food chain again for the top of the jobs, because the way to do all this stuff, whether it's Louis Riddick over here or whether it's Rex Ryan, is just be on television. One of these football teams will think that's leadership enough. Just be around talking about football, and we'll figure out how to make it a leader. And it doesn't matter how much garbage is on the resume.
I love the Jets having the guy that they fired as their GM, Mike Tannenbaum, heading up this search, and
it's so good.
All the fired guys end up at ESPN, and that's who the Jets are going to hire to run their organization.
Yeah, Mike Tannenbaum. Where did he work? Also, ESPN. He's just calling everybody he went to work with.
So bad. It's so lazy, man.
But Dan, what you're seeing is exactly what you described earlier, which is billionaires have toys. You think these people are sophisticated and discerning? No, they're just like, oh, he sounds pretty smart. Get him on here. Oh, there's a carousel going.
I can't believe the funniest coaching news that I saw yesterday was Ben Johnson just being like, Jets, I'm good. Don't need an interview. No thanks.
Seems like the origin of Up in Arms really dates back to 1297 when they first started using arms as a means for armor. In 1430, a coat of arms is first detected as something to refer to people bringing into a space with armor, but eventually, and it's unclear, that split changes somewhere in the late 1400s to late 1500s to turn arms specifically into up in arms with weaponry as opposed to armor.
Chris Cody, you are excellent at the carousel.
Thank you, Dan.
Billy, you
the
stink.
First compliment you've given me in 8 months.
Billy, you stink at the carousel. You are you don't participate in
That's
the carousel.
no.
your carousel energy stinks.
It hurts my neck.
Yeah. I was listening to all that information about arms.
Dan, to be fair, in every carousel, there's one that doesn't work.
Yes.
Right.
That's the
Okay,
one
but we
Billy-
always have
I'm
4
the
or 5
bench.
that don't work around here.
I'm the bench on the carousel.
Damn bench.
According to phrases.org,
Oh my God,
the
enough.
use of up in arms has significantly decreased in the last 20 years. It was at its peak in printed material in the mid-1990s, but since then it's only decreased.
Amin is the only one who's using it incorrectly these days in a way to get commentary
only one using
and
it.
communication
Bringing it back.
off the ground, but incorrectly
With
used.
a new twist.
The bench is up in arms.
It just didn't make sense. It was the wrong phrase to use. Thank you for all your contributions to the program. I wanted to ask how it is. Mike Ryan is not here, and there are some judgment things that I don't know about in terms of things that I can talk about or cannot talk about as it relates to the Fox Sports lawsuit, as it relates to our negotiations with DraftKings, and as it relates to this project that we're doing with Dan Patrick in New Orleans that I don't know if it's already sold out. We just announced it
Dan
yesterday.
versus Dan.
Yeah.
It should be Dan versus Dan. We erred in not naming it that. We did Dan interviews Dan, and that was a mistake.
This is a project, or I mean,
Well, I'm going to explain to you what it means to me.
diorama or
Thank
something
you,
like that?
thank you, thank you for asking. I appreciate you allowing me to promote this. You could go to ticketweb.com and you could search LeBatard. But I'd like to explain to people why it is that I want to do this, because it's going to be a cool night for either fans of this show or fans of Dan Patrick's show. But No one in the history of the industry has influenced this show more in terms of producers talking and just giving us permission to do some things that we have done with our career. And I really admire a man who the second part of his career is more impressive to me than the first part of his career. In the first part of his career, he changed all of sports television, because he didn't think that he could do the thing of creating a community of people who would listen to him after he left ESPN to make that radio show. And he's got a community of among like 5 to 10 communities anywhere in the history of this medium that in sports is an economy, because he left ESPN so successfully and has always been fair while doing it. Like that last part, Stugotz. Like hasn't had to cheapen himself at any turn with any hot take aggregations or anything of the kind. And when I talk about Pat Riley or Dan Patrick or people who have conquered the industry, and I tell you, my admiration is so profound for them, I don't give it in a way that's loose. And the reason that I give it is because somebody, I believe, merits it with a career that is bigger and better than most I've ever seen.
You got to save some of this for the project. I mean...
I will have plenty to tell people.
Dan Patrick's eulogy. Come see it.
Well, maybe we'll introduce Michael Kay there as well to do Michael Kay's eulogy while we're there as well. I simply want, look, man, I am so... Let me explain something to you here about watching, for example, Tony Reali at ESPN create an empire of voices and a community when it's really hard to do that, even if for 25 years you're in the middle of a daily sports lineup. That show is going to disappear in 6 months the way Bryant Gumbel's show disappeared after 29 years instead of 30, doing some of the best stuff that's available because the corporations are chewing everything up and eating everything up, so that Tony Reali, I don't know what he's going to do in 6 months, but it's not going to be help other sports writers be great at television on a show that creates community for listeners that are lasting. And so I want to admire these people while they're still alive, because we're killing some of the things that made me and us respect them.
I mean, Tony Reali is alive, right? He's young, he's healthy, he's got more career left, right? He's not at that phase yet where he's going to help the younger people out. To your point, I was shocked upon meeting Dan Patrick how helpful he was willing to be to me and to many, many others. He is a great human being.
The part I'm talking about, though, is being all of the things I'm saying and fair. Yeah. Look, you can have whatever your issues are with Oberman on whatever side you are, or me or anybody, because of whatever your divisions are. Do you know how hard it is to make it in this business for that long, being a pillar of professionalism who doesn't say shitty things about people? You can
He's fair.
You can think what you want about Skip Bayless, Jim Rome, however it is people do what they do. To do that fair, the degree of difficulty is damn near impossible.
Can I play devil's advocate? He stars in a lot of shitty Adam Sandler movies.
It's one of the perks.
I mean,
Also some good ones.
yeah.
Which ones were good?
Adam Sandler gets like a lot of hate that I think is envy. I think if you made a
course.
movie, it would not be as good as Adam Sandler's.
First of all, yes, it would. But
No, it
second
would
of all,
not.
Second of all,
Amin.
absolutely,
Amin.
absolutely.
You could not make a movie better
Give
than
me the
Adam
budget.
Sandler.
I swear to God.
No, you
I've got
could not.
3 of them ready to go right now.
I
What are they
appreciate the
about?
confidence, but you're wrong.
Not giving it away. Not giving it away for free. Give me this Adam Sandler budget, number 1. Number 2, envy? Of course. Someone hands me hundreds of millions of dollars, and all I do is invite my friends to go to Puerto Rico to have fun, and then I fart, and then I cast my wife and my kids and everything, and then they hand me more hundreds of millions of dollars. Who doesn't want that? Of course I'm envious.
For what it's worth, it's tough to make a movie worse than Jack and Jill, so Amin might have a point.
That's fair.
Dunkachino.
Jack and Jill.
That was real. He got Al Pacino, one of the greatest actors in the history of the medium, to do a fake Dunkin' Donuts commercial where he sang and danced about the Dunkachino.
Are you saying
Money.
Sandler is overrated? What are you saying? He's not funny?
I'm saying Dan Patrick is a hack for doing Sandler movies.
Dan Hacktrick.
And you know what, Dan? I've decided right now, I'm coming to New Orleans. And I'm coming in this Dan versus Dan thing.
It's Dan and Dan, or Dan
weird.
Coming to it.
interviews Dan. Thank you. I appreciate
Is
you
reality
coming
gonna be
to it.
there?
I love having the payoff. And Amin will be there.
Well,
And
I'll be there to tell Dan Patrick to his face.
that he's a fraud. The
You're,
hell call
not
him.
a fraud, because all the things you said are accurate. He is a trailblazer. They used to say when you leave ESPN, it's over for you. And Dan Patrick was a guy that showed everybody, like, no, it's not. There's life and lucrative things on the other side of that. But he is a hack for doing all those Adam Sandler movies. Absolutely.
Didn't he play Dick from Dick's Sporting Goods in a movie?
That's awesome.
Can I play for you guys some sound here? And I know we're going to do I really will need help from the audience, from you guys, because I have assigned some work to Jeremy and others to cover the Jimmy Butler stuff even more than we are presently covering it. And I want to know where the right side of talking about all of this too much is, even though it's in our wheelhouse. When I talk about respecting people with long legacies, and when I talk about how much the media has changed, Stugotz, you would understand why a Pat Riley being eviscerated by people like Gilbert Arenas and Paul Pierce. And I really don't say that as indictment of either Gilbert Arenas or Paul Pierce. I say it just to say that both of those human beings will say just about anything to make noise, and they probably, even though Paul Pierce is a Hall of Famer, they probably are a little looser with disrespect towards someone like Pat Riley than the average commentator, because they're famous for saying outlandish things. So let's hear from Gilbert Arenas here, and I want to get Amin's thoughts on how fair this is or isn't, because only Gilbert Arenas and Paul Pierce will do things like this.
We are Showtime. You're nobody. He was right. Yeah. He moved to the Knicks. He ain't doing nothing. He moved to Miami. Right, he got Shaq. I mean, he got Dwayne Wade. He came and got Shaquille O'Neal. Then they brought a whole bunch of other players to help win. You can't pretend you that guy. It's them. Listen, you're not bigger than them. Yeah. You're pretending you are. You see the interview? They left. LeBron came. They won a championship. You can't pretend you're bigger than LeBron. LeBron leaves, this crashes. Jimmy Butler comes. He gets you to the championship. If he tells you, bring me one more star, bring him one more star. Because if he can get you to the championship with this, bring me one more star, I got you. So for you to pretend that you are the Heat culture and you can do this, you're lying. Yeah. Because when he leaves, nobody's coming there. Nobody's coming to. You got South Beach in your favor. Yes. And you treat South Beach like it's a prison.
Gilbert is speaking from the truest point of view of a player. That's what he's giving, is the player perspective, which isn't invalid, but it also is not the whole picture, which is why when I see Amazon announce, hey, this is our broadcast team: Taylor Rooks, Dirk Nowitzki, Blake Griffin. Great names. Great names. All funny people, all smart people. But you need another perspective in there. You need another perspective in there, whether it's a coach, whether it's a former front office person, whoever. Because what a lot of studio shows are doing are leaning more and more on just the players.
Billy says you're applying for work.
Sounds like you're applying for a job right now.
Sitting here,
you know what you need? Me.
That's what it sounds like.
I didn't say that. I was just talking about.
It sounded like you were saying that.
It sounded like those perspectives are fine, but what you need is the right perspective, my perspective.
You need a balanced diet. You can't just have lima beans.
But why would Pat Riley, at this age, or at any age for that matter, care what Gilbert Arenas has to say about him? Pat Riley has had a Hall of Fame career. Pat Riley is considered one of the two. He's on the Mount Rushmore of NBA head coaches.
Do you think?
What does he care what Gilbert Arenas and a bunch of guys who didn't win anything have to say about him?
Right, so I ask you this question sincerely. Do you think immortals are totally immune to insecurity, especially as mortality approaches? I'm asking you this question sincerely. Do you believe there's an age that people are so confident that they never doubt anything?
I think they will doubt their entire lives when it's coming from someone they perceive to be equal. If that was Phil Jackson saying that, or someone like that.
There is no equal.
Okay, but it would hit home more with Riley than Gilbert Arenas, who's just saying it to get.
But there is no equal, and Pat Riley is going through something that has no precedent in. I mean, you said Gilbert dismissed what he did in New York. Shit, dude, New York hasn't gotten back there since. New York has been telling me how good they are.
Right.
Like, no, they're not. They haven't gotten back there since. Like,
made it to the finals.
They were not as good at any point over the last 20 years, living off of what Riley did with them as a stop between places where he did it. Gilbert Arenas, like, look, Paul Pierce's resume is fine. It ain't Riley's resume. Gilbert Arenas is sure as shit isn't.
But, like, look, Gilbert, like I said, he's speaking from a player's perspective. Also, Gilbert knows how to put a little extra on it, right? Paul knows how to put a little extra on it. And also, Paul is dancing on the grave of, for him, the organization that represents the biggest rival, right? When he looks across the way, it's like, that's the team I really, really didn't like. So, obviously, these guys are going to do their thing in terms of a little dance on the grave of, or the perceived grave of the Miami Heat. But I'm with Stugotz. I don't think Gilbert Arenas saying that stuff bothers Pat Riley. I think
Riley laughs at that.
You think he's tuning in?
I don't think he has any way of knowing how to even find that.
I think,
respectfully to all parties involved.
I think when Dan Le Batard says some stuff, now that's different.
David,
that's on at the arena.
Exactly.
This is an awkward transition. You will forgive me for the awkwardness of this transition. It seems at every point, we've blessedly gotten away from this over the last couple of months. Real life intrudes on whatever nonsense it is we're doing around here to remind you that a whole lot of people are in peril for a whole lot of reasons and subjects that feel a little apocalyptic. So David Wallace Wells is joining us now, and he's an opinion writer for the New York Times. He's helped us ruin this show before. He's also the author of a best-selling book called The Uninhabitable Earth. And these fires that have swept in with wind over Santa Monica, a place that I did not know that there could be fires, have created such atrocity that firefighters can't get in because cars are being abandoned. And we're seeing some stuff in America that it feels like we have not seen before. So, David, thank you for joining us. And can you just take me through this horror, when it's going to stop? Because it seems to me that when it comes to climate-related stuff, all of this is only going to get worse. We don't have an ability to stop some things that are coming that keep getting more kinds of worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're tempted often to call events like this a new normal, and even that is difficult for us to really wrap our heads around. If this kind of disaster that we're seeing in the Pacific Palisades especially, but across Los Angeles, becomes a new normal, that really changes the way that we might think about life in that part of the country. But of course, climate change means higher temperatures down the line. Inevitably, that will be happening for at least several decades, probably for as much as the rest of the century. And that means that fire risk will be growing too. We don't know exactly how much, but much worse than it is today. And unfortunately, all the things that we might be doing to kind of navigate that new landscape, making better housing policies so that we're not building homes in the path of fire, as we have with literally tens of millions of homes in the American West being built directly in high fire risk areas over the last couple of decades. We're also not doing enough to thin our forests and prevent fuel buildup, which means that when fires happen, they can be incredibly destructive. But we are also now in a new fire regime, in part because of the new climate conditions we're living under, whereby it's no longer just the trees or the brush that we need to worry about. Homes themselves have become flammable to an extent that they were not before and can themselves become fuel. So when you think about what is effectively an urban, or maybe you could generously call it semi-suburban development like we're seeing in the Pacific Palisades, it's no longer enough to look down a street and say, oh, there's all that pavement, there's all that concrete, there are all these modern homes. Those homes themselves can be what carries the fire from place to place. And that's exactly what we've seen in Los Angeles over the last 12 to 24 hours as this historic wind event swept in, winds blowing 100 miles an hour, carrying embers miles farther from where the flames were actually burning. And in those conditions, whenever an ignition starts, it's lights out. I mean, it is literally the case that CAL FIRE has never been able to stop a fire burning with wind powered by winds like these. So when winds are blowing like this, They can try to protect some structures. They tried to protect the fire department in Palisades last night. But generally speaking, all we can do is wait for the winds to change. And even though almost all of Pacific Palisades has been burned through already, the footage is incredible, dreary, bleak, gray, mercifully just a couple of deaths, but nevertheless, the neighborhood is devastated. We can expect something like 24 to 36 more hours of this wind event in California continuing, which means we may see other fires in the Los Angeles basin as destructive as this one emerge. And we're probably going to see continued devastation and destruction in the places where fires have already ignited. So it's a dark day in Los Angeles. And it's a reminder that we are, as you say, kind of careening into a quite terrifying climate future.
Explain, please, and I know I ruin the show every time that I do this, but I think people need to be shouting from burning mountaintops about what it is that we're doing to the earth as we do things like, make polio great again, and we deny that there is no climate crisis. That's the energy secretary, and oil industry CEO is saying there is no climate crisis. Can you please explain to me, in California, the precedent for what we're witnessing, because there can be a coldness from people listening to this until it's their home burning up and they lose all their stuff because, I don't know if it's hundreds of miles, but many, many miles from where people were expecting fire, there is now fire.
7 of the 8 largest wildfires in California history have burned since the year 2000. If you look at the modern history of wildfire, which stretches back more than a century now, really detailed statistics, we are in an entirely different fire regime than we have ever been in before. The same can be said for Canada, where they had completely off the charts fire season last year. So much fire burning in Canada that you could fit literally half the world's countries inside the burn scar of Canadian fires just from last year. In many parts of the world, not just these fire hotspots, but everywhere in the northern latitudes where we are at risk of fire, we are intensifying that risk by heating the planet, which, among other things, dries out fuel, evaporates water from the landscape, and turns, I said dries out fuel. That's the way that fire people talk. They talk about trees as fuel. And that language shift is the result of climate change. We would not be talking about trees as fuel if those trees were full of water and full of life. Instead, long droughts and even, a crazy waterfall followed by a brief drought can turn huge portions of the landscape into essentially a pile of tinder. And that is not just true across California, it's true across the American West, it's true across the Canadian forest, it's true across the Russian forest, increasingly it's true across the Mediterranean. We're seeing just an entirely new kind and new scale of fire, burning much more rapidly, much hotter, so hot that sometimes it can turn the silica in soil in California into glass just by burning through. And as I said earlier, so hot that it turns these homes, which used to be kind of natural fire breaks, into the equivalent of new fuel. All of that's happening because the planet's getting hotter. It's actually getting hotter at a faster rate now than it has ever gotten in the history of climate change and in the history of the planet. We are burning more fossil fuel and producing more carbon emissions today in 2024 than we ever have in the history of the world, which means to the extent that we think we have been hearing about climate change for a few decades, we're starting this green transition. That is true. But as we're continuing to roll out solar and wind and buy EVs and all the rest of it, we are still burning more fossil fuel every year than we have every year in the past, which means every year so far in my lifetime has been more destructive for the future of the planet's climate than every year before it. And in the US, we are now producing more oil and gas than we've ever produced in the history of the country and more than any other country in the world. As recently as 2016, we were exporting no natural gas and no oil. And now we are the world's #1 producer of both of those things, a bigger petrostate than all the petrostates we name call in the Middle East. And we look around when a fire burns through our homes in California. And unfortunately, I've been seeing on social media, at least, a lot of people trying to point the finger at government, local government, state government. I think this is a bigger problem. I mean, I think there are things that local policymakers can do. As I was saying earlier, changing housing, zoning policy, all the rest of it, being more prepared, spending more on preparedness and fuel thinning, also on the actual firefighting side of it. Unfortunately, 30% of California firefighters are actually inmates in California prisons that are paid something like $1 a day to fight in these fires. So we're not taking seriously enough the threat of them to properly fund professional firefighting operations. But beyond that, we are obviously dealing with a much larger, in some sense, existential threat and challenge, which is not the matter of individual small-scale policy choices or the behavior or leadership of this or that governor or mayor. We are living in an entirely new climactic regime, which presents new challenges, which humans can navigate, and we will survive. It won't be the end of us, but it represents a totally different risk landscape than anyone who has ever lived on the planet before has faced. Even those of us who lived in California and think, oh, we've had fires in the past, there's cultural memory of fires. That is all true. The fires we are facing now, especially in California, are much larger and more destructive than we've ever seen before. And that's especially true when we talk about, as I was saying earlier, this new regime. It's called the return of the urban firestorm. We really used to think that homes only burned in like the 19th century in Chicago or in the 17th century in London. We didn't think that modern homes were susceptible to this kind of destruction. And the new climate conditions, in addition to the new zoning policy that has pushed so many of these homes into the wildland-urban interface, into the path of fire, we are now living in a new era in which we can no longer take comfort in homes as fire breaks and have to treat them as potentially flammable fuel as well.
I want to congratulate this man for being the most long-winded guest in the history of the show, not named Bill Walton. His information is extraordinary and exceptional, and I understand why he's manic. He's here to tell you that the world is ending, and he's got a lot of facts on the situation, and nobody's listening, so it's a little alarming. But because he has hijacked the program with all of his good information, I'm going to put him in the picture-in-picture. I'm going to do a little bit of a palate cleanser here, and I'm going to bring in Amin to do a bit of a victory lap, a sponsored segment from another room, where I get Amin Al-Hassan to do a victory lap because I've got to punish David Wallace Wells for ruining the show with his fire talk, because there's no disputing most long-winded guest in the history of our show. No,
Yeah,
it's just Bill Walton. Bill Walton's number one, and now it's David Wallace Wells is number two.
Yeah, but
I'm proud to be number 2 to Tim. I mean,
yeah, you're punishing a guy though. You asked him to come on.
I did.
mean,
that is
right,
correct.
yeah.
I need to punish him right now, though. I'm going to put, and I understand. I just told you, I understand why he's crazed, because he's like telling everybody, "Hey, these fires, they seem bad. Like, listen to me," and nobody's listening. And so, like, of course. But I mean, what are you doing a victory lap on?
Well, Dan, first and foremost, I want to let everybody know that I am using my Peloton app right here, and I'm going to be doing a morning meditation. You know what?
That's not the spirit of
How
it.
about you use the Peloton?
That's not the spirit of the
Who's your
victory
instructor?
lap.
Because here it's
Is it
Miss Shaw.
Aditi?
It's Aditi Shaw, absolutely.
Ooh,
And
10 minutes? Did one this morning in my car. Not safe.
Dan, the important thing to realize here for everybody who's curious about Peloton, it's not just cycling and jumping up and
This
down.
is the laziest thing I've ever
It's
seen.
also other things like meditation. So I'm going to start the meditation, and I'm going to meditate.
This is not the point of the victory lap. The victory lap is for you to be winded and for us to get the payoff of your winded. It's not for you to do a meditation during the world is on fire.
Dan, you cannot shake me outside of my energy zone. I'm meditating right now, thinking about Will Manso and the apology he owes
Look,
me.
you're supposed
It
to be.
appears you punished all of us.
You're supposed to be winded. The other guy's long-winded. I'm going to let both of you go now because you're not doing the show I want to do. Thank you for being on with us. I appreciate both of you. David Wallace Wells, any last words? And I mean that literally.
don't look away from the damage. See it clearly, and try to take action.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
How do you feel about Dan's treatment of you, David? Just be honest for a second.
I'm proud to be ranked number 2 behind Bill Walton on any ranking. I mean, what can I say?
Right.
David, your information is great. It's just I'm perpetually wrestling with how much people don't want to hear it, even though it's burning right in their face. Like, I can't even imagine. Stugotz wanted to ask you whether we have any hope. I don't know how it is you don't feel hopeless as someone who has more information on this than any of us have and know that people aren't paying enough attention to this.
Well, when I see that only 2 people died in these fires, I mean, it's horrifying and tragic that those are 2 deaths, but we've seen fires like this over the last few years that killed dozens. And so I think we are learning something about how to evacuate, how seriously to take the threat at the local level. We're not doing enough to prevent the fires from happening in the first place, but maybe we are adjusting to that new reality in a way that will allow us, tragic as it is, horrifying as it is, to see this as a manageable future full of fire threat, but also a lot of human resilience.
David, thank you. Put him in picture again here for us and just make him sit there and be punished and watch Amin end the segment the way that this segment needs to end, which is the world's laziest victory lap. Amin, go ahead and finish the segment with all of your good work, please.
Dan, first of all, thank you, David. That was very informative. We need more people like you speaking truth to power and not being harassed and berated by Dan Le Batard. Speaking of harassed and berated by Dan Le Batard, hi, my name's Amin. We haven't met yet. Deep breaths, because meditation in the morning is so important, especially when you're focused on demanding an apology from Will Manso. 2 years ago, Will Manso was offended when I said the Boston Celtics were a way more talented team, and that the Heat had to overachieve and be perfect at every part of the execution in order to win, which was, at the time, for me, a compliment to the Miami Heat and being able to execute. But somehow Will Manso took offense, and he berated me like Dan Le Batard does, because he said if they're so talented, why didn't they win? And I said sometimes it's not just about talent to win.
He's fallen asleep. David has fallen asleep.
He's meditating.
And the mantra is like, and I feel like the mantra, it feels to me, is a little offensive. Like, it feels to me like you're not respecting the mantra enough.
I want the knife. Please.
Fine.
Did you just make a Golden Child reference?
Yes, Dan.
This meditation is brought to you by Peloton. Find your push, find your power with Peloton.
No, it's not a meditation. It's supposed to be a victory lap. The payoff is he's winded while celebrating that he got something right.
Dan, if it comes to angering you or angering the sponsor, I'd rather anger you.
David, thank you for being on with us.
We're sorry.
You are always welcome here. We need more people like you. Thank you, sir.
I concur.
Thanks for having me.
I don't think David Wallace Wells is happy.
I don't know. You guys tell me. Billy's shaking his
What do you
head.
think bothers him more, the fires or this show?
You guys, I don't think he was bothered. I think he No, I don't think he was bothered. I think he understands the tension involved with telling people stuff they don't want to hear, but especially doing so long-winded in a way that even further interrupts the
It's
show.
that part. That part.
He
The
couldn't have-
long-winded part.
He could not have left the Zoom quicker, if that's any kind of
From personal experience, I can tell you it doesn't feel good when you tell someone they're long-winded.
To be fair, Dan, you kind of saved it when you called them, or you compared him to Bill Walton. I think he really appreciated that. I wonder if he knows Bill Walton is no longer with us. Is that a $50 fine for David? I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dan.
No, Dan knows. Dan, you knew, right?
The Venmo bucket fine chart is $1 per mistake, $2 cough and phlegm, $3 pestering, $5 tone, $7 not listening, $10 phone interruption, $50 if you kill somebody. Juju reminds me, as he is wearing the Lamar Jackson gear, that I find myself with a rooting interest that is afraid this weekend, in that I do not want Lamar Jackson to fail because the Pittsburgh Steelers, maximum Pittsburgh Steelers him, and then I have to hear another offseason of how Lamar Jackson isn't that great because the Pittsburgh Steelers can do something against Lamar Jackson that no other team in the sport can do, and then all of a sudden Lamar Jackson is bad in the playoffs again. So, Juju, where are you? And thank you for joining us. Where are you on all of this? Because we've heard a whole season of who's better, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, and it seems like Lamar Jackson is better, even though your guy Josh Allen is pretty damn great. And here we go into a playoff game where no one would be surprised if Lamar Jackson loses and they score 13 points after having the best rushing offense anyone has ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, thank you for having me. Let me tilt my camera down, get a little juicier. I think if you are American, if you are just a grown-up person and you don't like Lamar Jackson, you need to, get over yourself. So it's like, I definitely have no problem with my brother Lamar. Lamar is representation as far as I'm concerned. Like, Lamar is the hood of America, out there doing it. Look at him go. I don't know if you guys watch the Hard Knocks. It's like, bro, he speaks the lingo of just every street cat in America. So I have uncontrollable love for Lamar Jackson. And you know how I feel about Josh. So I think that the stats has the stats that Lamar has put up this year, phenomenal, as well as Josh. But we got to take into account sometimes that it's a big advantage to be able to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. You feel me? It's a big advantage to be able to throw the ball to a Pro Bowl receiver in Zay Flowers, a legendary tight end in Mark Andrews. That defense is, you can rely on the defense to get you a couple wins during the season. Josh is devoid of all of that. So I think my brother Josh definitely may have the slight edge just because of the team aspect of it. You feel me? I think what Lamar Jackson is doing is nothing short of the offensive player of the year. But as far as the most valuable thing to a team, if you take Lamar from Baltimore, let's see what happens if you put in the backup. You feel me? But if you take Josh from Buffalo, cancel Christmas, tank it, go for the draft picks. You feel me? Respectfully.
That is real fandom right there, where Juju has to go against the guy who represents street credibility and blackness in favor of Josh Allen.
Nah, we ain't going to. Damn it, it sounds crazy when you say it like that, but I guess it's true.
You're just that big of a Bills fan that you want Josh Allen to be better than Lamar Jackson, even though I'm not sure Josh Allen is better than Lamar Jackson, but also Josh Allen might be the best quarterback I've ever seen.
Got you boxed in, Juju.
Josh Allen is not better than Lamar Jackson. I'll put that on wax. He's not better. I just think he's more valuable to the team, if you feel me.
I do. What do you have for us in the way of criticism? I feel like the show has turned a corner here over the last couple of months. It feels really good to be doing the show again. I'm sure Billy got a lot of applause today. What were the highlights on today's show?
Yes, everybody in the chat, now the YouTube chat, salute to the whole YouTube chat, man. I can't remember everybody's name all the time, so I'm not going to say one or two, but the chat was loving it. A lot of people in the comments were saying, dog, the 2025 show hasn't missed yet, not one show. So salute to everybody in there involved, man. Feels good, and it's a great watch. Also, Dan, don't worry about Pat Riley being mad. Remember, you're a comedian. You were telling jokes.
I need to do that. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
You weren't up in arms. You were just shooting from the hip.
That's right. He's got a good idea, man. He's right about this. If you identify as a comedian, they're the only ones with carte blanche while they're saying they're going to get canceled. It's weird times, man. How much did we ruin the show with the fire talk? Juju, I'm worried about this. I don't know how to do real world stuff, and we're just screwing around.
Look, I want to get a peek at that Venmo fine box bucket because, sir, brother, what's his name? David Wallace Wells fed you a tablespoon of your own medicine and you spit it out in front of everybody. You just got it on his shirt on the screen. Brother, from the makers and the creators of We're All Gonna Die, Dan Le Batard is tired of hearing about what's going on right now. A crisis that's actually happening. I've seen it all.
I'm not tired. I just wanted him to give me 10 answers to 10 questions as opposed to 2 answers to 2 questions. That's all.
Look,
I wanted
man,
all
so
of the same
serious.
information, but I wanted to be a back and forth. So that's where I failed. My tone was shitty today. I own the first fine in the fine bucket, it's a $5 tone fine. What other observations and criticisms do you have today? You've had some very strong takes lately. Do you have any new super rule takes for us today?
Not any super rules just yet. You know, those come to me as they come. You feel me? I definitely think my brother David Sampson was a little too harsh on the meme. He came in hot. You feel me? You don't tell somebody they look like a squirrel, like well, who's just dealing with trauma. It's just kind of mean. So I think we should ease off of each other's appearances, even though I am the creator of David Sampson's glasses. Were a little spy kiddish. You feel me? So I think we also didn't mention LeBron James turned back the clock last night. Holy moly. And dunked on Blake Lively. Not Blake. That would be crazy.
I want to watch that.
That would be crazy.
I want to watch that.
Very lively. He turned back the clock last night. Cooper Flag made a billboard last night. You feel me? Ice Tray, frigid in Utah. Oh my goodness. The NBA was on fire last night, and we didn't give too much attention to that because, you know what I mean? The show must go on. We got to keep the mafia off your back right now. So I understand what's going on.
That LeBron dunk actually made me like emotional. I watched it and it gave me chills because I couldn't believe that at 40 years old, he just turned 40, that he's still doing this. That would be the best highlight on a lot of Hall of Fame players' careers, and he's doing it at 40.
Yeah,
Hey, bro.
beyond doing it at 40, just doing it, man.
Just doing it at all.
Just doing that. That's an incredible play. That was crazy. And like you said, you had Ice Trey Young hitting a half-court shot to win the game at Utah. And by the way, Zion Williamson was back last night, Juju. I know you like that 360 he had.
Yes, sir, bro. Like it was, the NBA was back in full swing last night for the true fans of it. You know, it's still a lot of 3-pointers. My Celtics played last night again, so it was a lot of tray ball shot. But at the same time, man, I think they've been rejuvenated. A lot of these messaging and stuff like that. These players be online. You feel me? These players see what's going on. Proof that everybody is bumping LiAngelo Ball's song right now. So they hear all the criticism, and I feel like they're giving a little bit more effort for us right now.
I listened to yesterday's show. You guys did not bring up Jello. Jello's in Rolling Loud now. He's on the lineup in Rolling Loud, and he's not like one of the little names either. He's high up on the list. There's a bidding war happening right now for him with the record labels. This is real. This has real traction and real momentum. And we haven't mentioned it one time.
Hashtag LeVar was right. But yesterday we had some polls. I'm going to cover a couple polls from yesterday we didn't get to. Should this year's Super Bowl winner be forced to play the Bengals for the trophy? 62% of the audience said yes.
It's a Stugotz. It is one of the things that makes God Bless Football the award-winning thing that it is. This is a Stugotz exclusive. The Bengals should get to play the Super Bowl winner for the championship.
Does the drug sniffing dog at the airport always scare you? I know what I voted, but 69% of the audience I said yes. You feel me?
Nice. But before we move on off of that, I did have a question because it was kind of brought up a little bit yesterday, and then we kind of moved on. Can the drug sniffing dogs also sniff bombs? Because I feel like those are two types of dogs.
I've always been I've always thought that they are separate.
Yeah,
there's bomb dogs, and then they're trained for like one area of expertise.
It's like going to college. You got to declare a major. These guys majored in drugs. These guys majored in bombs. They don't.
But sometimes you get a Deion Sanders dog that could catch baseballs and sniff bombs. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can you put it on the poll, Juju, at LeBatard Show? We'll update that one tomorrow at LeBatard Show. Can the bomb-sniffing dog also smell for drugs, yes or no?
Yes, sir. Also, Dan Lanning, greatest coach in America, my ass. 82% of the audience says yes.
Last thing before we get you out of here, Juju, how many complaints? I really need genuine guidance on this. The Jimmy Butler stuff is obviously very interesting to me.
Yes.
What's too much Jimmy Butler stuff? Have we reached the point 3 days of Jimmy Butler stuff is too much Jimmy Butler stuff?
Let's just say there's a lot of people coming in with information because we got to remember some people live in Wisconsin. You know, some people live in Nevada. They don't care about Jimmy Butler as well or as much as we do. So they've been very vocal, but we don't need to highlight necessarily hate. I just know that it's there. One thing I did want to cover before we get out of here, though, is I heard video proof and evidence that you did say Tom Brady was washed on the show today.
Oh, that is so unfair. All right, Juju, I guess I have to take the L there. I thought the highlight of the show today was playing, and I always love this. It's one of my favorite things, playing for long-time participants in the show, sound that they had not heard that we are introducing to them. So I don't think we will get a bigger laugh today than the one we got from Amin falling down in the studio because Mickey Arison did indeed sound like he was at a Klan rally with the echoing auditorium sound of telling a whole lot of black people to please stay white.
Stay white. White.
From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and a great tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. You know, 2024 had its ups, had its downs, had a lot of moments in it. For me, many of those moments, I had a Miller Lite right there by my side. I supplemented my time by making it a Miller time. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Miller Lite has taste you know you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just a great beer for people who love beer. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers, and it has simple ingredients like malted barley for rich, balanced toffee note flavors and that iconic golden color. The original light beer since 1975 and still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.